everybody. Hi. Welcome to another episode of the Underbelly Hours in Dan's basement.
Hours.
That's right.
Such an emphasis on hours.
I know.
We actually did go over an hour.
We did. So it is
now hours.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Correctamundo.
I did the math. That checks out. Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
Crunch the numbers.
Thank you, Josh.
Divide by 5.
And all that jazz. And what's really cool about today's episodes is we are interviewing another podcaster. Whoa!
It's a podcast in a podcast.
Oh my god, podcasts.
Podcast on podcast. And what is that podcast? It's the Pop
Punk Pizza podcast. Woo! It's a lovely time with Jacques Lamour. And we can't wait to kick it off. But first we gotta do the intro. So, I'm Adela.
And I'm Dan.
And you're listening to another episode of the Underbelly Hours.
In my basement.
Take off your coat, stay a while!
Like listening to new music? Want to know a band before they get popular? Tune into the Underbelly Hours, Sunday nights at 6 p.m. on WRSC 88.7 FM, and discover the best of local, unsigned musicians. Don't miss out on the next big thing.
Alright, before we dive into the main part of the interview, it's time to do some new music shout-outs for this week. I want to bring up...
New music!
That's right. Thank you. Thank you for that. That was actually a really great sound effect.
You did.
We should,
you said shout-out, so I had
true.
to do a shout-out.
Thank you. The first artist we have for today is Tommy Bravos, who I'm so excited to share has released a new single. And this is also the single that he auditioned to NPR's Tiny Desk concert with. It's called Cassandra. And what's...
Cassandra! By Tommy Bravos!
Correct. And what's
There's
super cool... Thank you. I think Tommy actually heard that one, so thanks for doing that. He also, what's super cool about this one is that he is singing in English and in Greek, which is super cool. I
thought Greek was a dead language.
I mean, here, honestly, this is going to sound awful, I've never heard someone speak in Greek before,
Cool.
let alone sing in Greek.
Cool.
It's very pretty. It's a very pretty language. And I think it really complements the just style of the song very well. It's very flowery and talks about specifically Cassandra of Troy and how with her power of prophecy, and she was cursed to never have her visions believed. He was inspired by that story. So I think with that background, with the Greek verses, and just the beautiful production and arranging on this one, I think it's a really great song. Good cruising song. I was cruising to it last night, and it was really, really cool. I just love Tommy Bravos' voice, too. It's
Cassandra with a K.
It is with a K. I forget. Were you here when we interviewed Tommy? It was years ago. Okay, so then we have to have him back on the show so that you can meet Tommy Bravos. But super cool guy, very smooth voice, and really cool new song called Cassandra. Let's take a listen.
Of your body, saw things that I want to know. Will I know if I spoke of what I was seeing? Would you still let me inside? Please don't hide. Menos η καρδιά μου ξέρει τι είναι πραγματικό, αλλά δεν κάνει ήχο like Cassandra. No one believes, no one receives. Can you still hear me? Like Cassandra. No one believes.
Okay, cool. And then, unless you have another pick for this week, I have one in the back pocket I would like to show.
I mean, I'll just shout out Crab Cat again.
Crab
because
Cat!
they've been putting out a new little song every Friday.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
That's a nice... words. It's a nice synth vaporwave sound, and every song they've put out, I'm just like, yes, I'm digging this. It's good, just instrumental, like, background music for anything, really. If you like vaporwave stuff, synthy 80s, keyboard sounds. It's fun stuff. I like it. It's chill. And sometimes it's bumping.
And they have really cool
Every
arts,
Friday.
too.
Yeah.
Like
It's all, like,
pixelated.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
It's a crab.
And a
It's
cat.
a cat.
Yeah. Duh.
You put those two forces together and you get Crab Cat.
Just like an Avatar when they would mention random animals together,
What?
Never mind. Okay. you don't watch Avatar?
The blue people or the
No, the
Navi?
No, sorry, the kids show.
benders?
Yeah. They would like mesh up like
When did they
they
bend
did.
animals?
Not bend animals, they would mesh up so like
blend animals.
yeah, like the lion turtles or like the lemur monkeys or whatever.
I thought he was just a lemur.
Yeah, I
No.
thought, yeah.
That one's something I'm messing it up. But in any
There's a
case,
flying bison.
yeah, there's a bunch of there's I can't remember them all right now. But never mind. I guess you guys didn't. In any case, moving away from mixtures of animals, we also have one more track I want to shout out because this is someone who
liger.
has recently
half tiger.
come to my attention. She is, the name of her band is, I can't pronounce it really. I think it's Ayatoya. That's what it looks like, right? Ayatoya.
I don't know how else you would.
I don't know
pronounce
how
that.
to- yeah.
Ayatoya.
Ayatoya. I know the cinematographer.
The movie,
for
right?
her-
About the skater?
Are you serious?
Isn't that a movie? I Am Tonya or something? Tonya? The one who,
I
like,
have no idea.
cheated and
Tanya.
yeah,
Yeah.
that one.
Okay.
Ayatoya.
That was a
That's
good
this
movie.
is
Was it?
Yeah,
I
really
just
good.
love
Margot
Margot
Robbie.
Robbie. Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to check that out. But
Yeah,
this
it's about
is
the skater
the
that cheated in the Olympics or something. Was it the Olympics or
I
just
Am
some
Tonya.
other
It
skating
was the
competition?
Olympics. She didn't cheat. She like busted up someone else's legs.
Yeah,
wow. That's intense.
skating. That's kind of
All right.
taking out the competition.
That's literally.
Yeah.
Wow, alright, have to check that out. But no, this is the musician Ayatoya. I know the videographer for her music videos. His name's Raf Klishevich. You guys should go check him out. He's really, really good at cinematography.
Yeah, it looks
But this
intense.
music is really cool. It's kind of like post-rock style, with like the background ambient guitar layers and stuff. But her vocals delivery is like very hard rock. It's really cool. I really enjoy it, and it's definitely something that's a little bit different than what we usually see around here, at least, because we do have a very, like we talked about on the podcast, emo pop punk heavy scene. To get something that's more a mixture of like post rock and hard rock is not as common, and she does it very, very well. So I thought the music video was really cool. I thought her delivery was really great. And I encourage you guys to check it out. It's called Ayatoya. The song...
Vast Spaces.
Yes. Vast Spaces. Which is gonna play now.
Give me something to distract my mind, to erase vast spaces out of my sight, to make my blood flow, to make my pulse grow, to make the
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the main portion of tonight's show, where we have the fabulous, one-of-a-kind pop-punk pizza podcast host.
Pop punk and pizza.
Pop-punk and pizza podcast
There's
host.
the and in there.
That's
Don't
true.
forget
I
the
mean,
and, all too
you know,
important.
you could make it all one thing. I mean, that's fine. It's it's still all there, right? That's,
Yeah,
that's
the two
everything.
important factors are there: the pop punk and the pizza.
Pizza, that's right.
Yeah, right.
Trying to string them
Exactly.
together is up to you, I guess.
Correct.
Yeah.
But Jacques is also part of the Kankakee podcast now, and is a radio host on top of all of that, so he's a very busy guy, very cool. And we're so excited to talk to you today about music and everything else. So welcome to the show, Jacques Lamour.
Yes. Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you very much. I would say your whole last name as well, but I don't think I could pronounce your last name correctly.
That's-
I
And
still
I'm
get it
sure
wrong
most
all the time.
people, you know, how do you pronounce your last name, Adela?
Wait, can I try?
You can try, yes.
I forgot if the R is first or after the Skrovinsky? No.
Not bad. Skowroński. So what kind of throws people off is that, first of all, in the original, like, European Polish spelling of it, there's supposed to be a little accent over the N that I just, like, never include because, so the N is kind of like an Enya sound almost.
I like Enya.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, great.
Great
I love
artist.
Enya. Yeah, man.
And then most people also, for some reason, don't, like, do the O sound properly. They, like, skip over it. Like, Skowroński is weird to me. Like, it's
Well, that was
Skowroński. Skowroński.
Skowroński.
There you go. See, that's not too bad.
I wouldn't have gotten that. No way. I don't think so. I think I would have butchered the hell out of that. I'm so good at butchering names. It's terrible, and it's the worst. It's one of the. I feel like it's one of the worst things you can do in any media facet. Right? Is
Oh, yeah.
pronounce
True.
someone's last name wrong or their first name, or or if you're in blogging or newspapers or whatever, misspell it.
Yeah.
But I feel like misspelling it is a totally different thing than mispronouncing it. But
Yeah. Who
but
cares about
anyway,
the spelling?
yeah, I get a lot of people messing up Jacques. Of course, Lamour is pretty pretty self-explanatory, but
Yeah.
but Jacques is like, they'll say Jacques or
Jacques, no!
you
That's
know.
so awful.
And what's funny is that when I chose that name as my stage name and radio name or whatever, I thought it would be easy because it's like one of the most stereotypical French names you see for guys. You
Yeah.
see Jacques everywhere. If you don't see Jacques, you see Pierre.
Yeah.
But I guess I should have chose Pierre because, Jacques, I guess Jacques made sense because my legal name is Jacob or Jake. So I think that's why Jacques was just like, oh, okay, well, it's similar.
Right.
So I think and plus that's what my French name was in French class in high school.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was just gonna ask
Yeah.
that. Like, were
No,
you in
it-
French in high school?
yeah.
Picked the name.
yeah, that's where it came from,
Yeah.
and it was in high school when I was playing in a band. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna make that my name because I went to school with a bunch of Jakes because Jake was
There's so many
like the
Jakes.
popular. It was like the number one baby name for years.
Yeah,
So
Jacob.
there's a bunch of people named Jake around my age, and so I always would hear my name in the hallways, but no one was calling for me. They were calling for the Jake behind me or the Jake down the hall, or So that's why that was another reason that I tried to adopt that Jacques thing. So.
Did you
That's
have a
really
French name?
cool. Yeah, Veronique. Because Adela doesn't translate to French,
No.
so
Mine was Philippe because
Philippe.
yeah,
What? You are
Because
not
of-
a Philippe at all,
I
dude.
was. You didn't know me.
You look like a Philippe. I could see
Yeah,
that.
see? Yeah, get out of here.
I can't. Okay, but why did you choose Philippe then?
Because the French version of Dan or Daniel is Danielle.
Oh, true.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, isn't it Danielle? Like,
I'm like,
I'm pretty sure it's pronounced that way
So
if I remember
girly.
correctly. Did you say you were Dominique? Is that what you
No,
said?
I was Veronique.
Devonique?
Veronique. So like Veronica.
Oh.
But I don't know why.
Okay.
I liked a lot of names
Sorry, I
with
didn't hear the
V when I was like in. I liked lots of like V names and Z names when I was in middle school.
Xenon,
Yeah.
girl of the 21st century.
Yes.
Yeah. I took 3 years of French and I barely remember just because I don't use it. I didn't use it and I should have, but
Yeah.
Same. It took 2 years, and now I can only remember like je m'appelle, ça va, comme ci, comme ça.
Comme ça.
yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
Très bien.
I keep forgetting that you, especially if you took French, because I had a French minor. So like,
Yeah.
if you guys ever wanted to practice, I would love
Yeah,
to speak with
sure.
you. But
I'll get the Duolingo app
there you go.
and refresh
go.
my French.
There you go.
French.
My French.
But you're fluent in Polish, right?
Yeah. And then I got the state seal of biliteracy in French as well, but that was 3 years ago, and I haven't talked to anyone because I keep running into people who like you guys took French in high school, but then no one wants to speak French with me because they're all like too scared to.
It's
Well,
an
so I don't know.
intimidating language.
I have one of those little books that has like the phrases you can use. It's one of those
Okay.
books like you bring
The
with
travel
you if you ever
guide?
go to France or any like French-speaking country or city. You know, it's just like got all the different sayings in it. So maybe I'll just use that as a cheat, and we'll just try to have a conversation sometime.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
We'll have just a
A French
podcast.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
for all of our French fans.
the like two
Yeah.
people who know speak
Yeah.
speak French from our
We'll call
fan
it-
base.
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll call it fake French.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, kind of gearing back towards, just, I guess we never really started. So let's
No,
go
we-
into some of the,
We quickly had a nice long Underbelly Hours digression.
yes.
Those will
Hey,
come.
that's okay. I
very
do that
often.
on my podcast all the time. So
It's-
it's fun.
Yeah. I think we learned a lot, too. Like, for example, we both didn't know that Jacques was a stage name for you. So that's something that's very interesting and cool.
There you go.
It's
Yeah.
also cool because, like, you don't meet too many people nowadays who have stage names. I feel like even in radio, where that was, like, the most popular thing to do, I mean, all the, like, XRT guys are all, like, Jason Thomas. Like, they're all their first name and their last name are both first names because of, like, making things easier for the public to remember. But
Yeah.
it feels like everyone now is just like, doing away with stage names, just going with whatever their name is, no
Yeah.
matter how hard it is to pronounce. So it's cool.
Because they got to brand themselves.
That's true.
You know?
We're all
They're
brands
all
now.
on social media. They got to make the brand.
Yep,
And it's
yep.
easier to just make yourself a
Yeah.
brand,
Mhm.
for lack of a better term, I
Right.
guess.
Yeah.
That is
no,
the term.
that's true.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, I did keep my last name, so but I feel like I wasn't completely successful with Jacques because when it came time to put me on the radio in my hometown, the station I work for now, or the company I work for now, I first interned there, and they only knew me as Jacques. That's what everyone knew me as. No one knew that Jake was my legal name, And so when I auditioned for an on-air gig, and they decided to give it to me, they're like, "Well, you can't because it was a country station, so you're not going to have a guy named Jacques on a country station, right?" I mean, can you imagine?
I love that.
Like, I mean, I would have loved it, but my boss was not for it. He's like, "Okay,
Yeah.
well, you can't." He's like, "You can't be Jacques. Like, that's not going to fly with country. Doesn't sound very country."
Doesn't really fit
So I
the
was like,
profile.
"Well," I was like, "My real name's Jake," and he's like, "Oh, well,
That's country.
Yeah.
there you go."
Jake
You know,
Lenore. I can't do it. Never mind.
Just go with that. And it's actually funny because there is a country artist that is named Jake Owen, and that's my first name, and my son's first name is Owen. So, it's,
Hey,
yeah.
I prefer Buck Owens.
I'm Block Owens.
That's a real guy.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
from the 60s.
How
Buck
unfortunate.
Owens?
Yeah, Buck Owens.
Buck Owens. Yeah, man.
Buck is such an awful first name. I
Buck?
feel bad for the
Really?
guy.
I love Buck.
Yeah, Buck's awesome.
It's a name.
I mean-
it's like a deer, right? Buck.
Well,
Well,
yeah, but it's also a
Buck
name.
Buck is also the name of one of the main characters from Captain America, right? Buck Owens?
Oh, yeah, Bucky.
not
Oh,
Buck,
yeah.
Buck
Buck
Rogers?
Owens, Buck Barnes.
Buck Barnes.
Buck Barnes.
Oh yeah, Steve
Yeah.
Rogers. Duh.
Uh-huh.
Bucky.
Bucky. Okay.
Good old Buck.
Bucky, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
So, you've already kind of given us a little bit of a teaser, a glimpse into your radio life. You just mentioned that you first started a country station. But you are on so many different things now. You have 2 podcasts. You are on 2 different stations. So, you know, I'm curious. Let's go back a little bit and talk about how you got into this field of radio and podcasting, because it seems like you're very active in both fields. So, how did you first get into radio? And then maybe why did you also decide to add on podcasting? Because podcasting, for some people, at least in radio, when I talk to them, both of them are, they can help each other out, but they can also be direct competition. So,
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's a they're so similar but so different at the same time, as you guys know.
yeah.
So I was in a pop punk band for several years, for like 10, 12 years, from like age 13-ish to age 25. And when I graduated high school in 2009, that was my main focus. I wanted to be in a band. I wanted that to be my living. So I attempted to do that while working a full-time job at my grandpa's print shop. And I eventually just started to run out of gas, run out of fumes, right around age 24-ish, somewhere in there, 23, 24. I just kind of felt burnt out, and I thought, well, maybe this isn't exactly for me, but I would still like to do something music related. And I had always had an interest in broadcasting and acting as well. I actually dove into broadcasting before I dove into music, because at the age of 10, I started volunteering at the cable access channel in my hometown of Manteno. They had just the Comcast public access channel that you could only access, if you lived in Manteno and you had Comcast cable, but they would cover all different like community events, and they would broadcast the village board meetings and stuff. And so I started doing that at age 10. I started volunteering over there and learning kind of how TV and video stuff work. But then you fast forward a couple of years, and I really started to get more into music and punk rock and all that. So then I kind of laid that aside and concentrated on music. So when I got in my early 20s, I wanted a more steady paycheck, but like I said, I still wanted to be involved with music. So I thought, well, what about radio? I mean, that's kind of a sector of the music world is radio. So I went and signed up for the Illinois Center for Broadcasting. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that school.
Yeah, I have a friend who works there.
What's that?
I have a friend who works there, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's now Illinois Media School, but when I went there, it was still the Illinois Center for Broadcasting. So I went there from July of 2014 to July of 2015 for that, that 1 year. And it was two or 3 months or so into my year there. I was interning for 2 different stations in the Kankakee area, and an opportunity had opened up so the company I work for now is Milner Media, and so I was interning at Milner Media in 2014 for they have an oldies station, which is called The Valley. And I was interning on the morning show there. And one day I came in, and the guy's name was Bob Malkowski. He was the morning host at the time. He told me that, hey, there's a midday position open on River Country. It's like, are you interested in auditioning for it? And I'm like, absolutely, you know. And so I jumped at that chance. They auditioned me for like 2 weeks. So literally they just put me on the air just to see what I would sound like. And as you can imagine, I sounded awful because I had no experience really than just the, you know, playing in a band and, you know, that kind of thing. And it's still so different, you know, talking in a microphone, being in a band, than talking in a microphone when you're delving out information. So that was, so that started December 1st that I became the midday guy on River Country. And I did that until 2000, would have been 2017. So from 2014 to 2017, I was the midday host on River Country. And then a position opened up on another one of the Milner Media stations, the Top 40 Pop station. The morning
Adela's
slot
favorite.
Dan joked. I work at a Polish American station that does top 40 music. So
okay, I knew that the station you worked for was a Polish American station, but I didn't know what genre it was.
Yeah, it's very dance oriented. So it's like top 40 stuff, also dance music from kind of around the world. So we do a lot of Polish, but also we've done French and Spanish. K-pop obviously is now a must as well.
Yeah,
it's
BTS.
You know,
is that K-pop or is that J-pop?
That's K-pop.
So that's K-pop. Okay.
You know, it's definitely it's not the music I listen to on a regular basis, but I've learned to appreciate, you know, some things about it, and the fact that it's definitely universally kind of, at least most people, it doesn't like it's pleasant for most people, right? So there's like, I like a lot of things about the job. The music is not the best, but that's just my personal opinion. As you know, in radio it doesn't matter if you like the music or not, which is sad a little bit.
Yeah, I am right there with you. It's not my first choice, obviously, either. You know, when I started, I had been, so when I started hosting the Wake and Jake morning show on WSAV, I had already been voice tracking the afternoon shift for that station while being the midday guy on River Country. I was doing both of those stations. So I had already been familiar with, you know, the top 40 genre. But honestly, I didn't grow up listening to top 40 very much. So like when they first started having me voice track the afternoons on FAV, I was like, I don't know who these people are. Like, I've never heard this before. What is going on?
Yeah,
you know, it's just like, I've been listening to, you know, punk-oriented genres for the last however many years at this point. And so it was, But yeah, I'm right there with you. It's not my cup of tea.
Right.
But, you know,
but you got the morning show. Right? The morning show is a great position. I mean, that's like usually the best pay as well, is if you're in the morning show host.
Yeah. So at the same time that I switched to mornings on WFAV, I also took on the production director position there as well. Both of those openings were almost one and the same. So I was taking on a lot. I was taking on, you know, being a morning host, which is totally different than any part of the day, which you know, Adela, and then you know, the stress of being a production director is just unreal sometimes. So that was quite a bit to take on, only being, you know, 3 or 4 years into being a broadcaster.
So did you,
So
as the
that was-
production guy, also have to do? I'm just curious now. Sorry, I might occasionally interject questions because I haven't talked to many radio people since I started working in radio. So I'm just curious. For you, as a production director, I know like at our station, the production director, he does a lot of things. I mean, commercial. He does also the jingles, any sort of sound effects. Were you in charge of all of those things as well, in addition to hosting the mornings?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yep.
that's a lot of
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. Talk about stress.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what I do. Exactly what your production director does as well. The big bulk is commercials.
Yeah.
But I will do imaging as well sometimes. Just I guess whatever's needed, promos, all that stuff. And yeah, that can be a lot to handle, especially since there's 3 stations within the company.
Oh, so you're the production director of all 3?
Yeah.
Dang. Okay, that's kind of pushing it. Like I understand that like radio has consolidated quite a lot of jobs over the years, but that's like a lot for one person to handle. How did you manage to find the time to juggle all of those responsibilities?
Like I said, lots of stress, and still to this day, because I am still the production director, but I'm just no longer hosting the morning show on WFAV. I moved back to afternoons on WFAV, and I'm also afternoons on the oldie station, The Valley. So I do FAV is voice tracked, but The Valley is half of it's live, and then the rest of it is voice tracked. It's kind of a combination between the two of being live and then being recorded. So now I have 2 shows technically, and I'm doing the production director work. So, but unlike when I started that position in 2017, I've got much more experience handling that than I did then, and I was just so overwhelmed when I first started. Now I can crank things out quicker than I used to, so that helps. I can get a lot done within a couple hours. If I've got a big stack of production I got to take care of, I can usually crank that out. Commercials and all that stuff.
Can I ask just a curious question? Because I don't.
Yeah, what's up?
I don't understand anything. I'm an ignorant fool. Why make the decision as to do half the show voice tracked and half live? Is there benefits to just frees up time for you?
Well,
is it a scheduling conflict kind of thing? You have to be.
It's a scheduling thing. So I would do the Valley show. They wanted me to do that portion live instead of being live for a portion on FAV, just because the oldie station or the Valley is like it's like the mothership of the company. It's the number one. It's the uno, So that's always their priority, I guess you could say. And then the country station and the top 40 pop station are kind of secondary kind of thing. So the actual time I'm on is from 2 until 7 p.m. and I need to be out of the station by 5 so I can go pick up my son from daycare. So that's why I'm only live from 2 to 5 p.m. on the Valley. And
so that's a long time. I thought it was like a smaller slot, I guess.
Yeah. So that's why. Otherwise, I would go longer. But gotta get my son. Do the dad thing. So Dan, do you not have what is your background? Are you not in radio?
I just played in a band and decided to hit up Adela and be like, "I want to co-host." I got experience.
Yeah, Dan's a really fun songwriter, and he's a really great performer as well. And yeah.
No, I enrolled in Elmhurst, and a year before that, I was in the Battle of the Bands that the radio station at Elmhurst was throwing, and Adela was part of that. And I remembered the Underbelly hours from from that, and so when I enrolled, I was like, I need to get involved in everything, and this seems like a great thing. So I just pitched the idea of a co-host, not ever really being on. I don't think I ever had any radio experience. I had like some kind of broadcasting experience, barely at my high school, but that was for like the sports network they had.
Ew, sports. Sorry, guys. If you're into sports,
Falcon Sportsnet.
You guys are great. I could never broadcast in sports because I would just be like, they're kicking the ball. Oh, look at it go.
Yeah, no, and that's why I was delegated to color commentary.
Yeah,
I would not be trusted enough to actually call out plays and you actually know what they're doing. So I just kind of made stupid jokes about them. Like, he kicked that one really hard. Yeah. Look at the calves on that guy.
I could actually picture you doing that. That makes a whole lot more sense. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, that would be me if I was doing that too. I would just be saying, things like, "Oh wow, that was a really hard kick," and just sound like a moron. I'm not a sports guy, so yeah, I would be awful. Yeah. I would be awful at that.
Yeah, it was fun. I learned what a TriCaster was.
Okay.
So that was cool. But then,
those are cool.
Yeah, those are
I remember that from school. Yeah.
And then she said, "Yeah, let's try the co-host thing." And so I started doing like an hour or 2 hour thing just for the radio station, picking music, DJing, and then we would do the Underbelly hours Sunday nights.
Right.
And I, like everyone does when they first are on air, don't know how to talk.
That's everyone. That's like literally everyone, though.
I lost the knowledge of how to, as I'm doing right now because of lack of sleep, I lost the knowledge on how to structure sentences and use words in an alignment that actually makes sense.
It happens to the best of us.
It truly does.
You're in good company.
Oh, dude, yeah. Actually, really quickly, since we're tangenting, speaking of the sports thing, I have a very embarrassing sports story about on air. When I was just on this, I was, 3 months or so in, on the station that I currently work at, and we were talking for some reason. Oh yeah, there's like a competition, an eating competition that was going to happen in the studio. And
did you eat like a ton of pickles or something?
That's later. That's a whole other story.
I mean,
someone else was eating.
I saw a video. It was weird.
Yeah, I know, it was strange. That was a whole other dare. But other people had to eat pączki. So it's for Pączki Day, so Fat Tuesday.
Okay.
What's pączki?
Right.
Polish donuts, essentially. Except that they're much better than donuts, in my opinion. In any case,
they're delicious.
Yes, they're so good. So we had 3 people who were going to compete. One of them was the morning host, and the other 2 were professional, like, sports athletes. So one of them was, like, I don't know, some sort of, like, cross-country skier and also, car racer, and the other guy was, like, a boxer. And I was supposed to, we were on air right before the people were supposed to start eating, and we're supposed to color commentate. And one of the hosts asked me, like, hey, so, like, give us some background on the people, right? And I had all my notes prepared, but I didn't pull it up in time. So as I'm trying to pull up my notes on these guys, I was vamping, and I was going, yeah, these guys are so amazing. We have Andrzej Fonfara and Piotr whatever. They're important sports people in the world of sports is the sentence that I said on air. And to this day, people won't let me live it down. We have a commercial, actually, for our show where I say that.
Nice.
Like, they threw it in there, and they're like, we have, just to, like, showcase, because the whole idea of the afternoon shows were kind of opposites in a lot of ways, me and my co-host. So that's one of the opposites they chose to highlight, is him speaking eloquently about soccer, and then my soundbite is, they're sports people in the world of sports. So... We all forget how to say words when there's a microphone.
It was a little bit of the redundancy department of redundancy.
Yes. Do you have any stories like that, Jacques, of when you were first on air, like something that you remember messing up really bad?
Oh my gosh, I messed up so many things. I remember one of the things I think about was I was doing a contest one time, and I was a song was playing, and I was talking to the listener on the phone and just getting down like their their mailing address and their phone number or whatever. And somehow I don't know if I don't think my mic was on the air while the song was playing, but the phone was on the air while the song was playing. So,
shit.
So anyway, so I got this person's, information down and everything like that. And then, I don't know, like a couple minutes later, one of the sales girls comes into the studio and was like, so how's so-and-so on such and such street and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, how did you know that? And like, you had the phone on the air. And I'm like, oh, God.
So now everyone heard this person's first, last name, address.
Their address, yeah.
Oh,
and
shoot.
so that's one of the many things. Saying artist names wrong, that's a pretty common one. I mean, I guess it still happens just because some artists just have hard names or weird names. You got to look them up.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some other. This wasn't an on-air story, but one time I locked myself out of the radio station. That was pretty entertaining.
Oh, we've done that all the time at Elmhurst.
And I was the only one there, and so when I locked myself out, my phone was in the station as well, so I couldn't call anybody. And this was in the winter time of all times too. So that was a whole thing there. Man, I know I've got some other flubs or things I've done, but I can't. Oh, okay. Well, let's talk about cussing, right?
Oh, shoot.
Oh, yeah. That was like... Didn't I cuss, like, the second time I was on the show? I dropped, like, shit or something.
It was just, like, shit. It wasn't, like, the F-bomb. But... And it's college radio, so nobody's really, like, monitoring it anyways, but...
But it was one of those things I didn't know how to, like... You're just supposed to, like, blow right through it. And just,
and you stopped. That's the bad thing.
I drew all the attention to it.
Yeah, I've almost said the F-bomb on the air. But the last time, it was once again a kind of flub where my mic was on the air while a song was playing. And I was communicating with a listener once again, and I got she was supposed to stay on the phone so I could, get her information for this contest we were doing, so I could get her prize or whatever. And she hung up, and there was like a sharp feedback for some reason that was in my headphones when she hung up. And so I was like, I can't remember if I might have said God damn it or something like that. And so that went out over the air. And so
while the song was playing?
Yeah, and I had and this was on the morning show, so a lot of people were listening.
Yeah. And
so I got our Facebook page was hit up. I was getting messages like, dude, it was
Yeah.
And then there was a separate time where one of my voice tracks had I almost said mother effer on the air, but it cut off, luckily.
Oh, man.
And that was an accident. So sometimes the voice tracking software we have, there are some. I don't know if you do any voice tracking, Adela.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, sometimes you're doing a take and you just keep screwing up, right?
Yeah. Right. So you keep going.
You just keep re-recording. So once in a while, when you would have a instance like that where you would have to do several takes, for some reason, the very last final take that's good that you want to be on the air would not send over to the radio station computer. So one of the old ones would be there instead, and that's what would go over the air. So that's what happened. Instead of sending the correct a take I wanted for this voice track, it sent over the ones where I was getting pissed because I kept messing up, and that's when I was like, I said, "Oh, mother," and yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely a fun job. It's a weird job.
Oh Oh, there's so many stories.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
meet so many characters as well, and you know,
Mhm.
some listeners are
man.
you know, crazy as well.
Yep.
But as far as podcasting goes, I
Mhm.
guess I didn't talk about that, did I? Because you did ask me that. As far as where podcasting kicks in, I actually started podcasting before I was officially on the air on a radio station, but it wasn't long before. Like, it was just like a couple months before. I started podcasting literally when I started going to the Illinois Center for Broadcasting. So like in August or September of 2014 is when I started podcasting, because I was like, well, I want to be on the radio, right?
Mhm.
And I'm going to need some type of experience talking on the microphone. So that's where the whole podcasting thing came in. And it was really intriguing because with a podcast, you're your own boss. Like, you guys are the boss of your podcast, you know? Like, whatever you want to do, you can do. I mean, and so that was very appealing as well. So I started with the name Bangarang Radio, and I came up with Bangarang because that was also the same year that Robin Williams passed away.
Oh.
And they say that's, you know, Bangarang is what they shout in the Hook movie, if you've ever seen that. And that was one of my favorite movies of Robin Williams growing up. So that's what inspired the name. And then eventually Bangarang Radio became like a podcast network with some of my other friends, and then my podcast was just called Jacques Lamour, and it kind of went all over the spectrum on like what the episodes would be about. You know, sometimes it would be me talking to my friends about reviewing movies, or it would be talking to bands that I used to play shows with, or, you know, it was just kind of all over the place. And I read one day somewhere that you needed to be as specific as possible when you're doing a podcast. You know, like your show needs to be as specific as possible on something. And I thought, well, because I felt like I wasn't really getting anywhere with it, you know, since I was kind of all over the place as far as topics and content and whatnot. And then I thought about it. I'm like, okay, well, what are the things I'm really passionate about? What do I really like? And I thought, well, I'm obsessed with pizza, and I'm equally.
I love how that's the
as
first
obsessed-
thing that came to mind. I'm obsessed with pizza.
It is, yeah. I'm obsessed with pop punk. I'm obsessed with pizza. Those two go so well together. Let's make it pop punk and pizza, and that's where it was born. I was like, I'll sit and I'll talk to pop punk bands while eating pizza, and so that started in September of 2016, and it's, you know, I've been on and off. There's been periods where I wasn't putting out episodes or anything like that, but in a whole, it's been going ever since then. So,
Cool.
So that's that in a nutshell. And Kankakee Podcast isn't even a year old yet. That just started a couple months ago in May of this year of 2021. So, and Kankakee Podcast is about the people and places of Kankakee County, Illinois. So just people that are currently doing cool things, or people from the past, or it's just a combination of things that are currently happening or future happenings or historical content. It's just all encompassed in that. But every person or everything we talk about is in the county. You know, it has something to do with the county. I guess it's more, it's a little more story-based, I guess. You know, but you hear people's stories, I suppose, with pop punk and pizza. But it's you know, it's a little different since it's specific to one, you know, tiny little part of Illinois. You know.
Yeah, it's super cool though. I like that idea a lot. It's almost like you become a little radio station about that, you know, specific part of town. You know, it's super cool.
That's pretty much in a nutshell what it is. It's like having instead of having your talk show on the local AM station, it's a podcast. Like, That's pretty much what it is, and that was my idea because I felt like the community was lacking that, like, and nothing against, Milner Media, the company that I work for, or any of the other broadcasting companies in the area or media outlets. They can only cover so much. You can only talk about so many things. You can only go so deep on the air, on radio, in a newspaper. You can only go so far. But with a podcast, there's just a lot more freedom, and you can go further with things. You don't have to worry about, I mean,
time restrictions or like commercials cutting in, or
right, exactly. There's just a lot more freedom with it, and there's no you have. I mean, you could be biased, but my whole goal is to be as unbiased as possible and just kind of let it out there and be like, look, this is it. This is the story, or this is what this person is doing, or this is what happened 200 years ago in the county, or whatever the topic or the person happens to be. It's just a lot more freeing, and that's not a knock against any of the other media outlets in town. They can only do so much. So, and that's the fact. You can't write a novel in a newspaper.
Right.
So.
That's
Maybe
actually
a thick newspaper.
Thick volume. Actually, since we're on the topic of, I want to get back into Pop Punk Pizza because it's obviously like one of your biggest projects. But I'm curious, since we're on the topic of the strengths of different media and stuff, we have a lot of artists and musicians to listen to this podcast. And as somebody who's been in both like radio and podcasting for a long time, I'm curious, what do you think is more beneficial nowadays for artists to play their songs on, or to have their songs on? Is it the radio, or is it a podcast, and why, I guess?
That's a really great question. It all depends. It all depends on your genre, what your goal is. I suppose the goal is always exposure, and you're trying to make a living from your art, or maybe you're just, maybe this is just a hobby for you, and you just want to get the word out, and you want to get your investment back, right? From the time you spent making the record or the single or the EP, whatever it is, you just want to make your investment back, and get your music out to as many people as possible. Getting radio airplay for if you're an independent artist, or let's say you're just not a well-known artist, or not very well-known, your chances of getting into rotation at a radio station is pretty slim. Slim to almost none. That's not going to happen. Now, you'll have a chance at getting your song maybe played on the radio, but it might only happen once, like during a specific show, right? And that's totally cool, and that stuff helps. It really does help, and I won't say that it's definitely not a wasted time, because it looks good on paper. It looks good on your EPK. You can say, hey, this radio station played our song on such and such show with this well-known radio host, because, like, for instance, in the alternative world with like Q101, James Van Osdol has his local show every Sunday night, Demo 312, and James Van Osdol is a household name. So if he picked your band's song to play on his show, that's going to look good. That's going to look good for you. I don't know how much. It's hard to say if you'll get a ton of exposure from it, but it's definitely something that will help you in some regard. But it's such a crapshoot with radio. Right. I feel like, and there's a ton of benefits to podcasting as well. But I feel like you might get more out of a podcast than you would on radio. But it all depends on what kind of genre you're playing too.
Sure.
But yeah, I would not suggest to anyone to like send a ton of blast emails to, you know, Kiss FM and all these places to play your single, you know, put it into rotation, because they're not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those types of stations are only going to play what the general population knows and what is truly popular. You know, there's something. Sure, there are circumstances where things happen, but usually there's that power behind that unknown name, right? There's a label behind them, or there's somebody, you know. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. No, totally.
I don't know if that answers your question completely.
I think it does. I was just curious about someone else's point of view, because from what it seems like, a lot of, if you get on the right podcast that has your audience, you can get a lot more potential fans out of that. But the radio is cool because of the almost resume value, the prestige value, kind of, if it's on someone's show who is more picky, like for example the James Van Osdol Demo 312. I was just curious because, you know, it's definitely a big topic of discussion, at least in my workplace, is like, what are the benefits of radio truly in the 21st century, and how do we play up those strengths? Because podcasting has a lot of the strengths that would normally, 30 years ago have been associated with radio. So, I was just curious what your opinion on that was.
Yeah, that's a great question. They're definitely both valuable, and they should definitely both be something that a band works on. They should. They just gotta. I would just make sure, because I have gotten emails from several different unknown independent artists hitting up, WFAV, trying to get their single into rotation, and they're not even local, first of all, and there's some unknown person from South Carolina. Why, like, it unfortunately, radio as a whole doesn't work that way. I honestly wish it did. 'Cause, like, if it was my choice, if I listened to it, it's something I really liked and thought, wow, this does belong on the radio, like, I would put it on there. But that's not my, that's not my call, and most radio stations are like that. They're not going to play a bunch of unknown stuff. But I will say, another big point is, now, is it possible to get your song actually into rotation at a radio station in your scene, in your local scene? And the answer to that is absolutely. That can definitely happen if, you have enough support and enough interest. You could definitely get a radio station in your market that you live in, work in, because a lot of radio stations are all about being local. That's the whole point. They're there most of the time. So at least for the company I work for, they always focus on local stuff. In fact, that brings up a good point. So 5 or 6 years ago, there was actually a local artist from the Kankakee area that did get his song put into rotation on WFAV for a while, because it fit the format. He was super talented. He had the support. The song was super good. It was very, very polished. It knocked out of the park, so my boss put it into rotation. So, that is definitely something that's achievable in an artist's home market. That is definitely, there's a much higher chance at getting your song put into rotation into a station, or onto a station that's in your home area, than trying to get on a station that's 1,000 miles away or 500 miles away or whatever it is.
And by support, do you mean like having people call in to request your song and kind of make?
It depends. Like some radio stations they don't pick up on that. They'll ignore it. But some stations are looking for that. It all depends on the radio station. But as far as like support, I mean like having
Social media, probably.
Having fans and support in your area, just from playing shows or getting your name out there, having a presence, people knowing, like having a bunch of different people like know who you are and be like, oh yeah, I definitely want to put that on the air. And sometimes it's not even about someone specifically having heard the band, like they've just either heard their name or seen them. Sometimes that has a lot of power in it too, because they're like, wow, I hear about this band all the time, or
Right.
I see their name on flyers all the time, or I see them on Facebook all the time, or whatever it is.
Right. Isn't there like a magic number attributed to that? Like you have to see something now like 10 times before it's like registered or some kind.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is something. I forget what exactly that number is, but
and I think it just keeps getting higher as
attention spans grow shorter,
smaller,
probably.
Like, probably. But so yeah, it's definitely to reiterate one last time, it's definitely possible to get your song into rotation at your local radio station if you do it right, and if it's obviously a good song. It all comes back to working your butt off, perfecting that song, and it takes a lot of patience, because I know as a songwriter in the past, you get so excited about something you just wrote, but it's not always a good idea to just start playing it. Like you gotta work on that thing and make sure it's as good of a song as it can be, and then present it. So
yeah, because first impressions are
so
important.
Yeah.
And if you only get one first impression, and if it's not something that sticks with people, then they just discard it and kind of like, you're all right, but you gotta blow people away.
Yeah, you guys know all about that, being songwriters.
Yeah.
So.
And just getting the influx of music in the scene. There's a lot of times where I hear stuff and I hear the potential in it, but I try and look at it from just a regular audience perspective, and they're not going to be analyzing it as like, oh, well, that's a really good chorus, you just need to clean this up, and then you gotta do all these things and whatever. But somebody who's just like a general listener, music fan, they're just going to hear it once and be like, eh. They're not going to be like, oh, well, that has potential, it just needs to be cleaned up a bit. They're just gonna skip.
They're gonna skip.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of, I know we all did this when we were young, but we would just, we would write 10 songs and say, okay, that's the 10 songs we're gonna put on an album. We didn't even really think, oh, is this song actually good, or am I just putting it on there because,
it's what you wrote.
Right. We just we wrote these and we're going to put them out. Like, you should. Let's say you wrote 10 songs, maybe only one of them's good out of that 10. So you keep that one, then you write another 10 songs, and then see how many good ones are in that batch. You just got to keep,
refining.
Just got to just keep writing. Not everything you write has to be published or has to be heard. So.
But all my stuff is amazing.
Well,
all my stuff is genius. It's all got to get out there.
Well, it's like, I think that's actually a really good point to bring up, is that, we get so hard pressed, especially if, we have creative outlets like writing or music or arts or something. Sometimes we feel like with this social media kind of environment that we have to always take pictures, we have to always post everything that we ever do on social media.
Content.
But you don't do that with your life, right? So why would you do that with all of your pieces of art? You don't necessarily have to, not everything has to be commercialized, not everything has to be, put out there, because to be honest, not everything that you make, like you guys are saying, is for everybody, right? So it's better to make something for yourself sometimes and focus on selling only the things that can reach a certain audience, right? Versus everything that you
My life is my brand.
Well, I mean, it's a dangerous mentality, because it has to be, but you have to be careful, right?
Unabridged.
Abridged, unfortunately, for everybody. But,
Well, that's something cool that the Pop Punk and Pizza podcast focuses on. That you really kind of dive into the band's songwriting and what the songs are really about, which is nice, and we try and do that too because, yeah, you can go on any podcast and give your origin story of what are your influences, where did you guys start, where's the name come from, all that good stuff. But I feel like from a listener perspective too, it's much more enjoyable to hear what the songwriter had to say about the process of making that song, because if they're tuning in for that artist, they probably already know where they came from, how long they've been around, all that stuff.
Right.
They want to hear the juicy details, the exclusive takes.
Yeah, and it's really cool. We could always. I think what's cool about your podcast too is that you can tell that you have listened to the songs and that you enjoy the songs. And when you're talking about the band and their process, you're able to go on it on a deeper level than, like Dan was kind of referencing the surface. Like, yeah, where you're from, what's your influences, and etc. Through your time in the Pop Punk and Pizza podcast, what have been some of the most standout moments or interviews? I know this is a hard question. You don't have to pick your favorite.
Yeah, you're not
interview.
playing favorites, just
right? But just a couple of moments that stand out to you throughout your time at Pop Punk and Pizza podcast.
It is a hard question because I've been asked that before, and it's always hard to answer because I don't. Sure, I've had some conversations that are better than others, but I've never had a bad one. Never. I always feel so good after I record an episode of Pop Punk and Pizza because it just feels so good to have that connection or that positivity with a complete stranger, someone I'm just meeting for the first time, or maybe it's someone that I've listened to for years and I'm absolutely in love with their music. Regardless, it's usually a positive takeaway, and it makes me feel good to be able to connect with them and talk about the things that they're doing, and just learning more about them, maybe learning things I didn't know before, or when a lot of the artists I talk to are people I've never talked to before. I don't know much about them. Maybe I literally just learned about their band 2 weeks ago. And it's cool to hear what they're interested in, or how they're writing their songs, or there's so many different things. I feel like I do kind of do the origin with the lesser known bands just because.
Right.
Well, of course, yeah, right.
Yeah. But as far as to get back to your question, highlights. I mean, I can't forget being able to. The chances I've had to interview my musical heroes. One that the first I would say one of the first bigger interview I had on Pop Punk and Pizza was with Johnny Christmas, the trumpet player for Real Big Fish, and
awesome.
that was a huge moment because I've loved Real Big Fish since I was 8 years old.
Same.
And
Not since
I've seen.
Love
Are
Real
you?
Big Fish.
That's awesome. I've seen them play. I think they're the band I've seen the most play live out of all the others. So it was that was an amazing moment that really opened my eyes and really helped me get my feet wet on Pop Punk and Pizza with starting to get bigger names on the podcast, and helping me realize more that these people that we see as big, well-known names are just people just like you and I, seeing them just as a normal person and not this mega star. It kind of opened that window up in my mind too. So that one stands out in my mind. Talking to Justin Courtney Pierre of Motion City Soundtrack.
He's one of my musical heroes.
Yeah.
I didn't know you interviewed him. I got to go listen to that now.
He definitely is one of my musical heroes. Motion City Soundtrack as a whole, and so that was really crazy.
Let's hit him up. Let's get him on the show.
I mean, I think I just happened to be lucky because this was when he was putting out his first solo album back in 2018, and he was doing a ton of press for it, of course.
Right.
And I think it was just because he was really wanted to make sure that this thing stuck. You know, it's his first solo album. You know, so he did so many podcasts that year and so many interviews in many different media formats. So I think I just, happened to just get lucky with that one. But other, besides the more well-known people I've gotten to talk to, of course, those are going to be special because obviously they have a name attached to them and they're musical heroes. But some of the bands that I've gotten to connect with that are more on the not as known side of things. I had I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to think of where to start here too, because yet again, it's hard to pick favorites. But I know one of my favorites was with Drives the Common Man, who is he's just a solo artist. It's just one guy. He is out of Canada. And it was really interesting talking to him and about his Native American heritage. That was super fascinating. I've loved talking to. I talked to Ruth Crest last week. That's a really amazing band in the pop punk alternative scene. This is just a funny story. I'm trying to remember their name. They were a Chicago band, and I think they're still around. I think they're From the Start is their name.
Oh, I've heard of them.
Oh, From the Start.
Oh, wait, we've had him on the show.
We've had him on the show. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think you guys have had them on the show.
Jake and all them.
This was like 3 or 4 years ago. And I love telling this story because it's embarrassing, but it's also hilarious. So they actually came to my house. We got together, ate pizza, we're talking, recording, And during the section of the episode where I was playing their single at the time, one of the guys discovered dried up dog poop right next to the couch that they were sitting on.
Oh no!
My dog liked to sometimes be, crappy and sneak over into my podcast area and just let one out. And so apparently I had not looked over there before they had come over, but they literally found that during the interview, and that was one of the most embarrassing but funniest things to ever happen.
How did they react? Were they oh hey look, poop?
It was just funny. It was like they were thank God they were cool about it, but I'm just like, wow, like this is so embarrassing. So yeah, that was just a funny moment. Another cool thing was when Stu B from Lucky Boys Confusion, I got to talk to him. I think it was the day that he announced his MS diagnosis. It was either the very day or like the day after or something. We sat down and we recorded a podcast in a pizza place in Chicago together. And that was very special to be a part of something so sensitive. With I mean, it's not like I'm best friends with Stubby or anything. Someone, he doesn't know me very well. I don't know him very well, but he's okay with sitting down with me, having pizza, and sharing this information with my listeners and his fans. And so that was another something special to be a part of. There's so many things. I can go on and on and on.
Yeah.
Well, people will just have to check it out for themselves. Every episode. All 175? 176?
Yes, 175.
Wow. Look at that, Dan. Nice.
Yeah.
Because I just listened to
It'll
the
be-
Krista Makes episode.
Did you? Okay, yeah. There's 2.
I love Less
episodes
Than
with-
Jake.
I'm a huge Less Than Jake fan. One of the big.
Love them.
Yeah.
Are you gonna have Roger on? I feel like he'd be a fun guy to talk to.
I've thought about it just because he's been on the radar recently because of Rehasher putting out a cover album. So, I mean, that is a possibility. I've never talked with Roger. I've met him once, but we've never spoken together on the podcast. I was just looking back through some of the episodes and trying to think of it. Like I said, it's hard to... I know one that I enjoyed was number 162, and that was with Radom of a band called What Makes Sense, and they're from New York. And we had a great conversation because it turned out both of us were into classic Hollywood movies, like, like the old black and whites from, the 50s and the 60s and, even like further back. And it's rare that I find someone else who is into those like I am. So that was pretty cool. Another one was Cody of Millington. That was 160. I did not know this before the interview, but I found it out during the interview, was that Cody actually interned for John Feldman of Goldfinger. John is a well-known producer, being behind, the California record from Blink, and obviously so many other records from, the pop-punk, emo, screamo, post-hardcore scene. And so Cody was actually an intern for John while California was being recorded.
Oh, wow.
And so it was really cool to hear him, talk about his experience, during that,
What did you think about that album?
It's actually my favorite Blink record, and I know a lot of people hate me for saying that, but it's my favorite. I'm sorry, but
Josh, can you kill his feed? Can you? We're done here.
See?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm sorry, but that's
fight.
No. Here we'll get into maybe you'll agree. We'll close off the episode with this. I wanted to get your hot take on Tickets to My Downfall.
Oh, wait. Before we get...
my hot take on that?
Do you want to go with that right now?
No.
Let's save that.
Okay.
So just honestly, I don't know, do you think this is too hard of a question?
Wait, so why California?
I'll answer any
Okay.
question.
Yeah.
What about California made it, like, your favorite album for you?
I think, probably to put it better...
Do you hate Tom DeLonge?
No. I like Tom DeLonge, but I feel like Tom was burnt out from Blink,
Yeah.
And I think if he would have stayed with the band and gone forward, I just don't think it would have been good. I mean, maybe he'll come back someday. I mean, that's always a possibility. And maybe if he does come back and whatever they put out then, maybe it'll be something I'm more interested in. But it just it didn't seem like, just from the information that the fans knew on the outside, didn't seem like things were clicking with Tom and Mark and Travis all together. So I definitely don't hate Tom. He's an amazing songwriter. I don't know, there was just something, I think California was just done so well. I think California, I should probably say, maybe I should specify it more. It's my favorite album as an adult Blink-182 fan. Now, as a kid, of course, it was like Enema of the State, right?
Naturally.
But, yeah, but as an adult now, that I think it probably just spoke to me a little bit more because it's a little more mature.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I don't know. The songs get stuck in my head all the time. They just clicked with me, And it's not that I'm a big Alkaline Trio fan. I mean, I like Alkaline Trio, and I like what Matt Skiba does, but I'm not, like, worshiping at his feet,
Right.
Do
you know how much...
Sorry,
do you know how much Matt Skiba actually, like, contributed to, like... Because I feel like a lot of it was very much Mark writing.
Well, I do know that when, like early on, the writing sessions for California, a lot of it, when they were starting out, felt like the songs sounded a lot like Alkaline Trio songs, So I think that, and this might have been the point before John Feldman got into the mix. And I think that might have been one of the reasons that they ended up going to John, or any producer for that matter, to be like, hey, we need some help. Because I think, if I remember, I remember that specifically where they were doing writing with Matt, and it would sound too much like Alkaline Trio. And then I think they tried, like things that Matt would write, they would sound more like Plus 44, and which some people still argue that California does sound like a Plus 44 album. I know many fans have argued that, I don't think it does. I think it sounds like Blink. It just sounds obviously different because you don't have Tom in there, So it's not the traditional sounding Blink, but yeah, I think that's what they were having early on, and then I think once John came in, I think that's when things started to align better. I don't remember. It's been a while since I read up on that stuff. But it's still my favorite. It just clicks with me, No,
I get it. I just think you're wrong 100%, and now distrust any opinion that you will share going forward. Adela, I think you had a question.
Yeah, I do not want to get in the middle of this Blink fight.
Everyone has their their favorite Blink album.
For sure. No, it's funny how people integral a producer can be to
the sound,
shape a sound, make it make the band sound like them, because sometimes the band might not. They might be going off in different directions, and the producer's like, "Hey, rein it in, guys. Let's go."
Yeah.
It's cool.
I don't know. This one might be a little hard, but I was just curious. You've interviewed so many people, and you obviously know a lot about the pop punk scene in general. If you could throw the ultimate pizza party, right? And you can invite 5 bands to this pizza party. Which 5 bands would you invite? And well, you don't have to say one, but just.
And what are the toppings on that pizza?
So it can be any bands that
it could be any band that you want. Yeah, it doesn't have to be bands that you talked to. It could be anyone. And try to go with just whatever starts to pop into your mind first.
The ultimate pop punk pizza party.
The ultimate. You call it the ultimate pop punk pizza party. And you guys play Ultimate Smash
for the
at the ultimate.
Extra alliteration.
I mean, even though they're not one of my favorite pop punk bands of all time, I feel like for some reason New Found Glory would have to be there.
Okay.
I mean, I like New Found Glory. Don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't say they're there's other bands just for my personal preference that come before them. But when it comes to you're talking like a pizza party like that, I feel like New Found Glory has to be there. I just feel like that is a given. They have to be there. And then I would say Goldfinger too. I have to have Goldfinger has to be there.
Yes.
MXPX has to be there, which I feel like they're since Mike Herrera of MXPX is also in Goldfinger now. That's almost like even if you just have Mike Herrera there, it's almost like you have Goldfinger there. And then so that's 2 or that's 3. I guess that's 3 technically.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always wanted to meet Green Day. I'm a huge Green Day fan. I'm wearing a Green Day shirt now. So yeah, a Green Day for sure. That's 4. There's one more.
Final slot.
The last one. Man, I feel bad if I don't invite just an up and coming band from the pop punk scene. the last one is always the hardest.
No, yeah.
If I have to, I'm trying to think of one of the bands that I talk to on a regular basis.
He's
Yeah, that's a tough
deep
one.
in thought.
Well, it's the last golden
maybe
ticket.
Gold.
Yeah, that's true.
What's that?
Said it's the last golden
ticket.
ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's gonna be Charlie?
It's gonna be Charlie.
Probably, and this is just because we're friends. I probably have to say Guardrail, just because
Okay.
I'm good friends with those guys. They've been wonderful supporters of the podcast and the band I was in, and they always have a good time. So I'd probably have to say Guardrail. I have to have at least one Chicago band in there, right?
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
and that would be, Guardrail is one of the Chicago bands that I would love to have at an ultimate pizza party for sure.
Ultimate
So.
Pop Punk Pizza Party podcast
Yes.
and pool party. Maybe you could throw a pool. I'm
Pool
sorry.
party.
Okay, that's enough peace.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just love one of my favorite things is just your name is so great. Pop Punk and Pizza Podcast. The
Yeah.
P is so
I like
Alliteration
I
is
like-
so much fun.
yeah.
the Underbelly Hours name.
Oh, thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
Did you just hear that pity compliment?
I
from
did
us?
hear the
It's not a pity compliment.
He's like, yeah, Underbelly
Promise.
is cool.
I like it.
Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah.
it. Yeah, it
I'm
was
just
I
messing.
think it's a cool name.
it was literally because there's like anything underground in the name is already taken, so we had to get
Yeah.
a little more creative than that.
And that's when I first saw the name. That's what I took it as, and that's why I was like, oh, that's cool, because like everyone puts like underground,
right.
like underground something or something underground,
Right.
but you guys were like, how about Underbelly?
Yeah.
You know, so I like
The only
I like
thing
the thinking there. I like the
Yeah.
thought process.
the only thing I don't 100% like about it is that it sounds a little sinister. Because, like, you think the underbelly of society, or, like, the underbelly, like, criminal
Yeah, it's the
organization.
underbelly of the musicians.
like, all the
rising up
nasty people.
to take over trash the music industry puts out now.
Oh, alright. Actually,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go with that. And now, next time somebody asks why we are called the Underbelly Hours, we're going with that explanation.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you guys
You gotta take down the old guard.
primarily talk to a lot of like indie
Yeah.
artists, right? Like indie rock and things like that. And like, I mean, there's not really a lot of. I mean, how many bands can you list? How many indie-esque bands can you list that are like up in front and center in the mainstream?
Right. Independent. I mean,
Well, at that point, you kind of lose the indie status,
Right.
don't you? I mean,
well,
it's kinda,
no,
it depends.
Chance
I'm talking
the
about,
Rapper.
like, the genre, not the
I love Chance
essence
the
of being independent, but like the genre indie.
as like a
music.
sound.
As a sound.
Yeah, as the indie sound to it, you know. So I think that's another reason why Underbelly
Yeah.
kind of works well with that genre. So I
Yeah,
think you guys nailed that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It's all you.
Alright.
We try and get everyone. We try and get just the cream of the crop.
Yeah, that's
The
right.
best that we
Yeah.
can find.
Speaking of the best, or potentially the worst, I think it's time to ask the question.
Uh-oh.
The question that you alluded to. Because
Oh,
it's also something, we talked about this on air recently, actually. The idea that pop punk is seeing a
Has
little
Machine
bit...
Gun Kelly saved
Well,
pop punk?
No, hold up. Let me explain, right? We have Machine Gun Kelly, who recently won, like, Billboard Top Rock Artist of the Year or whatever.
Is that-
He's...
Means everything.
Well, no, but it means a lot of people are listening. That means a lot of people are listening. I'm not going to say whether or not that means he's good, but a lot of people are listening to him. Olivia Rodrigo recently put out a song that's very Paramore-esque. There's another person who recently cut up... Oh, yeah, what's her name? Will Smith's daughter is releasing a whole pop punk album. Well, I'm saying...
Is she really?
Well, she is,
Willow?
yeah. Willow is about to drop... She's about to
drop.
drop a whole pop punk album. So,
You see, you guys got the one up on me because I didn't know that. So.
I
I
have...
didn't want to know that.
Well, now you know. So we talked about this on air. Like, are young people kind of getting more interested in pop punk again? And because of that, also me and Dan delved into MG.
I watched
Machine Gun
the
Kelly's.
whole damn video.
Yes, Downfall High or whatever it's
Tickets.
called.
Oh yeah, the
Tickets
video.
to-
Tickets to my
Tickets to My Downfall.
Yeah.
And then the video is called Downfall Heights or something like that.
Right.
Yep. I think it's isn't it Downfall High School or something?
Yeah,
something
like.
I'll be honest, I haven't watched the video. I mean, I've listened to the record, but
Right.
I never watched that movie or that video
Yeah,
that he put out.
It's not worth your
Don't.
time. And poor Dan watched the whole thing. I didn't specify when we were like doing notes, preparation notes, to just like skim through it, because I just skimmed through it. He watched the whole damn thing.
I thought the agreement
wow.
was that we had to watch the whole thing, and so I come in fully prepared to just rip this thing apart.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, I only made it like 5 minutes in."
Yeah, I couldn't. So
I'm like,
all of
what?
this is to preface the question, which has been itching at our minds. What do you think about Machine Gun Kelly's popularity in pop punk currently?
I think it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's cool to see artists that are pumping in their pop punk influence into their work, and making it known. I mean, on all the different Facebook groups for pop punk that are out there that I'm a part of, when MGK, released the first single from that record, and then when the record came out, there was all these arguments on whether he was pop punk, was he not pop punk, and just all this back and forth, and it's just like, it's such a stupid argument to me, because every single genre evolves over time, as well as every artist, they evolve over time, right? Mm-hmm. It's just nature. So, because I mean, there's still people to this day that were around when punk rock was coming into the mainstream in the 70s or late 70s. A lot of people considered the Ramones to be pop punk even then. So you could argue that they are the first pop punk band, because they weren't nearly as aggressive as bands they played shows with before they were well known, or peers from a similar scene. But no, I think the MGK, and there's even like Mod Sun now, which is a product of John Feldman, I believe. Travis Barker is obviously the product of MGK, but Travis is also influencing other artists as well to kind of pump in some of that pop punk flavor into their songs. So I think it's great that it's actually seeped its way back into the mainstream. It's absolutely cool. I have nothing against it. I have nothing but great things to say, just because it's cool to see. You can't stop something from evolving. You just accept it, or you embrace it, or whatever. But really,
100%.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate the surge in popularity, and like I have a guitar student that like is now fully into pop punk, and listening to Green Day, Blink, less than Jake, I shoved down her throat. It's like,
okay.
But she enjoys all of it now, and it's kind of cool to see like the next generation actually appreciating not just what MGK put out, but like also going back and
because of that, they're introduced,
appreciating the previous generation, even going back further, discovering the roots of the genre. And so I think that's all great. I just didn't like the album.
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty much.
I mean, I listened to it. I didn't think it was the greatest thing I'd ever heard.
Yeah, there was like 2 songs. I was like, all right, I like those. I forgot what they were.
Yeah, I mean, it's not one of my favorite albums of all time, but I thought it was good. I thought it was decent, and I thought it was very good for the pop punk or even punk rock community, even because just kind of like what Dan was saying there is the younger generation is listening to MGK and they're like, oh, I want to hear some more stuff like this. So what do? They go back and they find, they'll discover Blink-182, and so they'll start finding about all those other bands, and it continues, the fan base lives on for the Godfathers, or whatever you would like to call them beforehand. It continues for them. I remember listening to a conversation, or maybe no, I was listening to a podcast with Chris DeMakes, and he was talking about how when Good Charlotte's broke into the mainstream in the early 2000s, and they got to go on tour, Less Than Jake got to go on tour with them. He was talking about how that introduced Less Than Jake to a whole new generation and kept them going, because at that point they had been around for 10 years, so it kept Less Than Jake going and be able to introduce themselves to new people, younger people. So that's almost like MGK or any of these other similar artists are doing. You mentioned Olivia Rodrigo. I mean, that almost opens the door for the people that don't know about Avril Lavigne
or Paramore is something that I've heard.
Or Paramore,
like that song's super. I forgot what's it called. Anyway, yeah, continue.
Good for you, right?
Good for you, yeah. Good for you.
Yeah. Yep. So it's a great thing. It's a great thing.
Yeah. Cool.
The next wave is coming.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, that was the argument that people talk about. Oh, is it bringing it back? And it's like, well, pop punk never died.
No.
It never died. No genre ever dies. It just, it might not be in the mainstream's eye, but it's always there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool. All right, man. I think, is it time to start asking for the plugs and the chugs? All right, chug, and then we'll unless there's
another.
Speaking of, what are you chugging today, Dan?
I was chugging a nice cold Vox and Hops sponsored Blood of Our Enemies, brewed at Dry City, our local microbrewery right here in Wheaton. They had their launch day just this past Wednesday. I was there. It was amazing. There was burgers, there was donuts, there was like all these other local people showing up, and the band Yakuza, I don't know, either way.
That band?
Back to the name pronunciation thing, aren't we?
Right. They were in collaboration with Mick, the head brewer here, to make this beer, and they were there at the event from Chicago. It was really cool seeing them, even though I didn't do my homework and listen to them. But they were really cool guys. And, so if you're ever in good old Wheaton, or the surrounding burbs, make a stop by to Dry City, and they still got a bunch of this. It's got pepper spice in it, so it's really interesting taste. It's
that is interesting.
It's not enough to like
burn,
but it's enough to just be like, ooh, there's a little spice.
Gives you that little bit of spice in your throat.
Yes, and I also got a free hot sauce by the Vox and Hops podcast guys.
Ooh.
So we're gonna do some kind of bit with that soon.
Sounds fun.
Cool.
I'm just gonna shove it down like Adela's throat. Just the heat, the fire. Anyways,
so that's our little
plug. We're trying to boost those guys up.
Yeah.
And speaking of plugs, let's talk about where we've been talking so much about, Pop Punk Pizza. We talked about Kankakee Podcast. Where can people find all of the different projects that you yourself are involved in, Jacques?
So Pop Punk and Pizza, you can go to Pop Punk and Pizza, or Pop Punk Pizza Pod, poppunkpizzapod.com, and you can listen to episodes there, but you'll also find links to all the different platforms that we're on. We're all on all the major platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that fun stuff. And then Kankakee Podcast, same thing. You can go to kankakeepodcast.com, and you'll find all the links to the different platforms there as well. Or you can just listen on the website if you wish. And then socials for Pop Punk and Pizza are same as the website. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pop Punk Pizza Pod. Kankakee Podcast, same thing. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Kankakee Podcast. So those are all the outlets there. So yeah.
Nice.
And we do Pop Punk and Pizza. I do live stream the recording of each episode every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Time on our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch accounts. So if you want to watch it happen live, you can do that. But otherwise, a new episode gets posted every Thursday. So
Nice. Very
Awesome.
cool. And then if somebody's driving around the Kankakee County area and wants to tune into a radio station, what is the station that they can find your lovely voice on?
Oh, you're too kind. So I do afternoons on both WFAV 95.1, 2 to 7 p.m. And you can listen on your radio if you're in the listening area, but you can also listen online at WFAV951.com. And then I'm on two radio stations at once, so you could flip back and forth between the two frequencies, and it's really weird. I still don't know why they set it up that way, because to me it doesn't make sense. But that's a long story short. But anyway, so then I'm on the Valley 92.7, 2 to 7 p.m. And the website for that is WVLI927.com. So.
Cool.
That's where you can find those. So
Awesome. Well, everyone go check it out. Follow, like, subscribe. Smash all the buttons. And yeah,
ring the bell now, right? For notifications.
Yeah, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm. And if you're interested in just finding out about people like Jacques, or interesting bands, or want to see live showcases of music, you can follow us at the Underbelly Hours. We're located on Instagram, on Facebook, YouTube. You can listen to the podcast on all the streaming platforms, as well as oxchicago.com, which is our lovely podcast host. We also have a TikTok. Sometimes we do fun stuff there. I'm still trying to figure that out. I've been saying that for like weeks now, but if you like that kind of stuff, it'll be like goofy content. Feel free to follow us on TikTok as well. And that's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us, Jack. It was a pleasure talking to you and finding out about all the ins and outs of the podcast and everything you got going on. So thank you for your time. It was great.
No, thanks, guys. I hope it wasn't too boring.
Oh, it was wonderful. It was fantastic. And with that, you're Dan.
And you're Adela.
And this has been another episode of the Underbelly Hours.
In my basement.
Bye.
Are you tired of listening to the same bands over and over again?
Over and over.
Stop listening to what mainstream media chooses for you.
You filthy casual.
And try something new. Tune in to the Underbelly Hours every Sunday night at 6 p.m.
on WRSE 88.7 FM.
For exclusive interviews, unreleased content, and more from the depths of Chicago's underground. I'm Adela.
I'm Dan.
Take off your coat, stay a while!
Now available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or anywhere you stream your podcasts, thanks to Ox Audio, a Chicago-based podcasting platform.